unanimous. And we're moving straight on to welcoming Kylie and Ross. Or is it just Kylie, both? No, welcome. And we may as well ask Kenneth to come up as well. And we've got enough seats for Michael and Warren. Why not? If they wish to come up. Kylie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kia ora koutou. First up on the agenda today, on page 9, is the overview to decision-making for both the annual budget 2019 and the proposed amendment to the 10-year budget. Today's report doesn't require any decisions from you. However, what it does do is provides a reminder of the process that's been followed and also noting 4 other reports on the agenda today. The report takes us back to December last year, where you agreed the consultation items for the annual budget. On the 13th of February, the governing body adopted both the consultation document and the supporting information, and this included both the annual budget and the amendment to the 10-year budget. Public consultation ran from the 17th of February through to the 17th of March, and the engagement team presented this feedback to you on the 17th of April. The full summary of feedback report is attachment A to this report. On the 8th of May, each of the local boards came in and presented not only their board's views on the regional issues, but also advocated on local priorities important to them. And this has been formalised in the local board report, next up on the agenda. Last week, there were 2 workshops held which identified further budget pressures. These weren't consulted on, however, were very important to consider before decision-making today. So the 4 other reports on the agenda today require your consideration and decisions in order for staff to go away and finalise the documentation. The proposed amendment to the 10-year budget does require Audit New Zealand to review this, and following this we will bring back both products to the governing body on the 20th of June, seeking formal adoption. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Simpson.
So, thank you very much. There has been, in my opinion, maybe a little bit of a just a problem sometimes with confirming with ward councillors prior to setting dates for engagement ward by ward. So, Kenneth, maybe do you want to talk to that, or highlight any issues that maybe you have experienced around that?
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Through the Chair. It is obviously challenging logistically to ensure that we are able to design an approach with heavy say events that are accessible and meet the schedule requirements of all our elected members. And while we have successfully this year delivered 58 heavy say events, which were 95% successful in terms of meeting the scheduled requirements of councillors and local board members, year on year there is a challenge to ensure that councillors have that opportunity. And so could I move as an added amendment to today's proceedings that in future, in scheduling heavy say events, that we check with our councillors to ensure the timing, the format, they have input into that process as well, so that we can have confidence in their ability to attend.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'd be happy to move the recommendations with that amendment.
Okay, righto. So we have that been passed on, Ken, the writing? Okay, we may need to come up quickly. This may go through quickly. Other questions? Councillor Cooper.
Councillors, they don't get an opportunity to speak on the regional decisions at those events that are held basically under the auspices of the local board. And so I do know 1 or 2 where, that needs to be that opportunity, because the local boards can't speak to those and on behalf of the governing body. And so I think there needs to be some checks and balances in place there, that it isn't a local board event as such, it is a Auckland Council event, and that we all get to participate and be able to express what we're intending or proposing to do through an annual plan proposal. Well, I've had some where it's ended up being a debate with me at the table by the local board members when we've got people sitting there. So those sorts of things aren't appropriate.
Yeah.
And I must say, it would be good if we got a chance to do the design, help with, or at least have input into the design of it and the format, because at one meeting I went to, we had 2 people. That was it. You know, and maybe some of those formats don't suit people.
It could be that people are satisfied with what we're doing in Auckland. Councillor Walker.
Hi. What opportunity was there for people to present in a formal setting to the mayor and councillors? And who was that opportunity made available to?
Thank you for the question. So we, depending on how you define formal, we had the style of engagement that we conduct now in terms of aligning to good practice was one where everybody could participate. The formal process that you would have experienced a few years ago, we've now moved to an approach which is more inclusive and allows more people to participate at these events. We have the regional stakeholder event where stakeholders and groups of interests are invited to participate in the conversation directly with elected members. But in terms of the formal traditional style that we used to follow, we no longer look to do that going forward unless there are special reasons.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, just for clarity then, and I'm just picking through what you've said, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that the only opportunity for someone to present formally to the mayor and councillors was at a regional stakeholder event, and my further understanding is that people would only be made aware of that event if they're on some mailing list for it. Is that correct? Those 2 points, are they essentially correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Councillor Walker, if you can bring your speaker in front of you and back.
Would you like me to repeat?
No, we can hear it, but I can see it's at a big angle there. Councillor Stewart.
Yes, I was just going to suggest maybe we could have some signage just on, not everywhere, but just sort of key places, you know, on council reserves or something like that. Have a bit of signage, just reminding everybody that there's a have your say and where it's going to be and the time. And I think you might end up with a lot more people because a lot of people don't even know that it's happening because not everybody. Whatever. Okay, thanks.
Point taken. Councillor Simpson, yes? No, sorry, I was just going to ask Kylie if that would... Okay, all right. They'll give us a nod if it doesn't work. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chair. And I've just, it's just a comment or maybe a question for future. I've just put this, and thanks to the team for doing this for me after the workshop last week, is just we in future could have a bit more information like this, because at first the pie graphs we were given of the yes, no, partial feedback on each issue were only given on the people who decided to comment on each issue, so it made it look like it was everyone who submitted split into 3, but actually when I dug deeper it was, you know, we maybe had 6,000 people submit on the annual plan, but only 1,000 people might have commented on a specific issue. So some people might have gone past a question and gone, oh yeah, I'm not interested in that, or that's fine, and then moved to the next one, and that was their passionate bit they wanted to comment on. And it's just a bit more revealing around, you know, when 80% of people who submitted didn't actually comment on a specific issue, but we were treating the pie graphs originally looked like it was for and against on everyone who submitted, when say, you know, maybe 70 or 80% focused on different issues throughout the document, because we didn't ask yes, no questions on every issue. So it was just, to me, a bit confusing, but I think if we could have, especially going to the local boards, a bit more of a deeper look at, yeah, because it's an opt-in if you comment at all on some of the issues, and we split it as if it was everyone who had commented.
Yes, thank you. Point taken. I think going forward, there's a lot of opportunity to achieve more granularity in terms of the insights that we provide you down to local level. That, of course, needs to be tempered with the amount of feedback we get from different people to ensure that there is a cross-section at a local and regional level. But yes, we'll endeavour to do that because we realise that will help you with your decision making.
So that was a question, that was an answer. Has that paperwork been handed to the press so they understand what we're talking about? Councillor Hills, I think you should pass copies to the press. There was, Councillor Casey.
I wasn't going to speak, but well, just on the process, I want to say well done on the Have Your Say process. And I used to think that the only way to do the job was to have formal presentations. And I used to sit for hours listening to lawyers who the submitters had paid to come in and read a submission which we had in front of us. And it was like, ugh. It's a big ask to ask people out there to come into this room and address us for 5 minutes. And what I've found at the Have Your Say events is that real people get your ear for up to 15, 20, half an hour even. And the subjects they raise are the ones that are dear to their heart. And I'm with the chair. I think people turn up when they've got an issue. We're too busy. They're too busy feeding their kids. When they've got an issue, they'll turn up. And at the Have Your Say events, I got Eden Park, I got the swimmability of Point Chevalier, like beach. All I want to say is that the process is working for me. I think we're getting to real people. I think they're getting more time than ever would coming in here. And I think we're doing it right.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Philippa.
Chair, I had a comment. That's why I wasn't going to say anything. I thought it was just question time. But because of the comment...
No, there's a blending here.
Yeah?
Blending.
Okay. Look, I just in regards to C, I mean, look, I'm going to vote for it. But I agree with Kathy in regards to the Have Your Say events, especially within your ward. I've had both the chairs of my local boards get hold of me, ask me, how do you want that format to go in relationship with Ken, your team. So look, if that means that something goes back to the local boards to make sure they speak to their councillors, fine. But that's happening with us. So that's why I'm going to end up voting for that, because if it becomes consistent with the local boards, not your team. I just want to add that it's not with your team, because we've been all part of that consultative sort of agenda around, how are we going to improve all this. So I agree with you, Kathy, and I thought it was just question time, but after your comment, look, not your team. This is something that we need to sort of work on between our local boards and our councillors. So that's why I'll be voting for C as part of this recommendation. Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Kenneth, to you and your team.
I'll vote for C as well, but why do we have a capital H there? And why is that not hyphenated? I don't know. It seems unusual style to have a capital H, but anyway, I've been told that is the style. Councillor Holtz.
Just a quick
I know,
clarification, and completely supportive of where the discussion's going, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Cooper and Councillor Casey for drawing attention to the fact that alternate ways of organising Have Your Say is the way to do it, and the old bring people in and line them up and give them 3 minutes while we all do Facebook and not listen, is that time has passed, and so it should. Just a clarification around some of the templated submissions that we've received. I was a little bit confused on our other submissions of note on page 17. We talk about the Women of Waiuku, which was a templated series of submissions received, but we don't note the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance as a kind of templated group of submissions that we received. I'm just trying to get a bit of a sense of, because we accepted them as a late submission, just trying to get a sense of what the volume was of the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance templated submissions.
Through the chair, the late submissions which capture Auckland ratepayers is part of attachment 4 of that report.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was separate from what was presented on the 17th of April.
Yeah.
But in terms of the numbers, I'd have to call on Dean McIntosh to come up.
Which I don't want to make a great big thing of it, Mr. Chair. It's just, I guess, an interest because when the numbers are so low, and if we are having councillors concerned about what the Auckland community say, you know, we have to be cognisant and respectful of submissions, but we also need to understand the makeup of those submissions.
Hey,
Hi, just to address that, as Kylie said, the Auckland Ratepayer Alliance submissions weren't addressed as a templated pro forma submission initially because they were late, but if you look at that attachment 4, we do highlight there were 425 late submissions and 260 of those were of the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance templated submission.
I just think that wasn't clear in the report and we need to make that clear.
yes,
Thank you.
60% of them. Right, councillors, we have a mover and we have a seconder, and there's no further questions, no further comments. I'm going to put that. All those in favour? Against? No. Thank you, team.